Are you thinking of getting a dog? You might be wondering where the best place to get a dog is. I've been thinking about this too, and after a lot of research, I've come to the conclusion that you shouldn't buy from a breeder, but instead from a shelter. Why? Breeders can breed the dogs unprofessionally, which causes health problems with the dogs. Additionally, it can be much more expensive. I'm here to talk to you today because I will be comparing animal shelters to breeders. It is my hope that by the end of this presentation, I have convinced you to consider shelters over breeders if you decide to add a dog to your family. How are the dogs cared for, and who really does a better job taking care of all the animals? Shelters do a better job taking care of the animals because they have in-place programs where the dogs are neutered and vaccinated. Neutering and vaccinations are important because vaccinations help your dog from getting sick, and neutering helps with the pet overpopulation crisis. According to What is an Animal Shelter by PETA, shelters provide cruelty investigators, a veterinarian on call 24 hours a day, and a policy to house stray dogs for 5 days minimum. Additionally, shelters also have a pre-adoption check and follow-up program. Some breeders don't have nearly enough of the proper knowledge to care for the dogs that they're breeding. A lot of dogs can develop serious health issues without the breeder even knowing. Some of the health issues that certain breeds of dog can get are Burmese mountain dogs and beagles, for example, can suffer from epilepsy, which is a brain disorder that causes recurring unprovoked seizures. Doberman pinschers can suffer from circulatory disorders, such as strokes, degenerative valve disease, etc. German Shepherds and Labrador Retrievers can suffer from hip dysplasia, which is a deformity of the hip that happens during growth. A common thing that all dogs can get is brachycephaly, which is when their forehead bulges and it gives your eyes and nose a push-in look. Although these aren't really common in breeds, if left untreated, could cause bigger issues. Shelters have staff to help detect these things, whereas breeders do not. Earlier I mentioned that there is a big difference in cost, so how does the cost come into play in this situation? Shelter dogs most of the time cost around $500. And you don't have to pay for neutering and vaccinations because they have that provided too. However, people who buy from breeders spend a lot more. A typical breeder dog costs thousands of dollars. Most cost around $5,000 or sometimes even more. What are some overall downsides to breeders? According to PETA, breeding dogs is technically killing dogs because every time a new dog is born into the world, a dog in a shelter loses its chance at getting adopted. An estimated 70 million stray dogs are struggling to stay alive on the streets. Breeders follow the trends and produce the most popular dogs, such as huskies, but over time, a lot of these dogs get deserted because the trend for that breed is fading and because owners realize how much work is required to house a living animal. Millions upon millions of these dogs hit a painful end by being hit by cars, attacked by other animals, getting diseases, and many more gruesome ends. I bet you've heard of a puppy mill before, but do you really know what it is? Probably not. A puppy mill is part of the dog breeding industry, but is very different than regular breeders. A puppy mill is a very bad thing where dogs are forced to breed until they physically can't anymore. What happens to them when they physically can't anymore? It's sad. Horrible, really. They are either left on the side of the road, deserted, sold, or even killed. The dogs in puppy mills spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, locked up in cages with little to no exposure to humans or the outside world, and absolutely no room to play or exercise. The unsanitary conditions make it even worse because the dogs are trapped inside with the horrible conditions. According to the Humane Society, there are about 10,000 puppy mills worldwide and about 2.6 million about 10,000 in the US and about 2.6 million worldwide. Puppy mills have a lack of care for their dogs, and about 500,000 dogs are kept in puppy mills. Something that is so outrageous, so injustice, so wrong, is that 24% of puppy mills have licenses to sell their dogs. I don't know how they pass the cleanliness tests and the other tests, but even if a puppy mill is clean, it shouldn't give them the right to breed the dogs the way they do. And the other puppy mills just sell the dogs anyway, seeming to have no care for the puppies. Don't be fooled. Even places that say the dogs are registered can be puppy mills. In conclusion, I think that puppy mills and breeders are outrageous and that you should definitely buy from a shelter instead. If you're thinking about adding a dog or puppy to your family, please consider the information in this presentation and do your research. I hope that if you preferred breeders, my talk persuaded you to prefer shelters over breeders. I hope that if you were thinking of getting a dog and you couldn't decide between a shelter or a breeder, you found my talk very persuasive.